who were dissecting why the champions of free speech and openness were suddenly betraying those values. These were the Sargons and the Paul Joseph Watsons.
This is a very whitewashed retelling of history, huh, guys?
No.
A little bit of a whitewashed retelling of history?
No.
Can we re-listen to that one?
Sure. Speech and openness were suddenly betraying those values. These were the Sargons and the Paul Joseph.
Well, no. Let's go back a little more. What do you call Sargon and Paul Joseph Watson?
Values of free speech and openness, and it was novel to them that leftoids rather than rightoids for once were opposing those values. After that, though, came the classical liberals, who were dissecting why the champions of free speech and openness were suddenly betraying those values. These were the Sargon.
The classical liberals.
Yes.
DBH, this is how people saw it. That is true. This is how I saw it, and this is how a lot of people saw it.
Chat's going after him.
Ooh.
Yeah, so he's here. We'll pause it. He's saying stuff like, "This is how people saw it back in the day." It's like, yeah, well, one, I'm describing how people saw it. That's part of the point. And two, if we're talking like 2014, Sargon and Paul Joseph Watson, at that point, they were classical liberals.
Right.
I don't think they are anymore.
Right.
But
that's kind of
they
lost
were.
on him. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you want to know
Even his chat is saying that's how it was back then. That's how people saw it back then. It's like, yes.
You know who said that in his chat?
Who?
Shoe on head.
Shoe on head.
That's awesome.
Oh God.
This is pretty funny.
How
That's pretty funny.
I can't. So a former Nazi doesn't believe that you can change your political position? That's very interesting to me.
That's true. Yeah. He hold on. Xanderhal's whole thing is that he had a political position that he changed.
Right.
And now he's saying that these people can't also change their positions to go from classical liberalism to something more right wing.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway. I don't. Maybe what it is, because I don't know if you guys have encountered this, but there's a lot of people who say that fascists will lie to get anything. They'll say whatever it takes for them to win over the people. Then they'll just implement fascism. I think that's kind of true, but kind of not. But maybe he thinks
some people. It depends upon the people.
Yeah, it depends. But maybe what he thinks is that if someone moves right wing, they were always right wing and just hiding their power level. But if someone moves left wing, then they're getting better.
Yeah, that is how he's conceptualizing it entirely.
Yes, right. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they think right wingness is a sickness.
Right.
Yeah.
Bjorn Kazark for $20. Thanks so much. Says the alt-right pipeline is literally just someone who's liberal being repeatedly told, quote, you can't do that, and looking for any way they can. If they keep going right, that means the modern right is less authentic, I think is what they were going to say. But there you go.
Offensive, maybe?
Hold on. AUTH, authoritarian.
Oh, authoritarian. Oh, okay. You're right. Overseer's Logs for $50. Thank you so much. Says most of the radicalized people I've met online or in real life were radicalized primarily because they lacked self-control and reflection. I knew a guy who went from one extreme to the other because he essentially just did whatever was popular on the Chan sites.
Well, that's hilarious.
That is pretty ridiculous. I don't know if it's so much of a lack of self-control and reflection. I think it comes back to what I said earlier in the stream. There are people that care about freedom and there are people that don't. And so I think it's easy for people that don't care about freedom to just vacillate from one extreme to the other, honestly.
It's partially that. I mean, I'm sure you've both seen the Jordan Peterson lecture where he talks about how there were the drunks who couldn't do anything in the various Soviet villages that became the commissars because they got the opportunity to get revenge on their successful neighbors.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
I think there's definitely people like that.
That's true.
And they'll be left or right, doesn't matter as long as they can, blame somebody else for how shitty their life is.
You're right, and that's a really good point to address. Is that there are people who just are angry at life. They're angry at society. They feel like life has failed them in some degree, and so they'll obviously be drawn to, or more likely to be drawn to, a philosophy that has a tear it down mentality.
Yes.
So yeah, that's definitely very true. Cryptomancer Lex for 500 Mega Man X dollars. Thank you so much. Says, I think neo-reactionaries agree that democracy gives power to the people who make citizens happy, but making citizens happy is not the same as doing what's good for them. And someone will always take advantage of that. Also, Dev, let's talk about elite theory on your stream.
On my stream? Wait, who's
Crymancer Lex. Crymancer Lex.
Oh, I know who Crymancer Lex is. He does my artwork.
Yeah, he does great artwork. So.
He does these animated backgrounds of mine.
Oh, cool. I didn't. There you go.
Yeah, he's a great fella. Yeah,
talk
sure.
To him about elite theory.
If you want to talk about elite theory, we can do that. Just, I mean, you have my DM. I should probably answer it because I owe you some money. But you know what? DM me. We'll talk about it. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. I don't know if you guys are the same as me, but I wake up with like another dozen DMs every day. I finally cleared through most of them, so I'll be able to talk to people again.
I do the problem where
DMs.
Oh, that's smart. I look at my DMs and I see a bunch and I go, oh, I'll respond to these, and then I just forget, never do. So
Yep.
I only closed my DMs because I was getting raided by some OnlyFans bot.
Oh,
I was like,
there you go.
Fuck this. I'll open them.
Adam, do you want the tomboy abs? Click here.
There you go.
Yeah, someone was desperate to get me to sign up for their OnlyFans. So
that's what it was. Some quackademic agent signed up your email or your Twitter account.
I don't know. I'll open them up again.
Yeah, I mean, people definitely saw it that way back then, and I definitely did as well. The question is,
I do like how at first he's all like, this is bullshit. And then when Shu says that's the way people saw it, suddenly like the attitude changed.
All of a sudden, Shu comes in fucking regulating. Internet cop here. Fucking content cop on the beat.
Funny.
I mean, to Shu's credit,
you don't.
To Shu's credit, she sometimes remembers what the past was like and what she was like, 10 years
ago.
Oh,
no.
Wow. Look at you with that backhanded compliment.
Wait, it's about as nice as I can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
some drama between you and
there's
Shu
some weird thing between Shu and Dev.
I didn't know this. We have positive. The Sitch Adam show maintains positive diplomatic relations with the nation of Shu. Okay,
we're on good terms with Shu, Dev. So
yes,
that's good.
But you don't. I mean, I read your thread and you were upset about something. I guess Shu said in the chat. Shu said something like, you have a weird parasocial relationship with her.
We can get to that if you want when we get there.
Okay, we'll get there when we get there.
Well, it's not in the video. I mean, no one's going to.
Yes, it is.
It was in your thread.
Video.
Oh, they talk about it?
I think Xanderhall mentions it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he says Xanderhall says something about that you have a parasocial relationship with your audience or something, which I don't know how you could take that from this video, but
is that how Short Fat Otaku is framing it? Or is he trying to describe it from the perspective of a normie? Can't really tell. Sargon and PJW are not classical liberals by any means. Sargon is a white nationalist, and PJW...
So that triggers me so much. I mean, I feel... So Sargon wanted to go on his channel and start just calling Xanderhal a pedo right and left, which, I mean, he could do.
I mean, Sargon the Quadroon is a white nationalist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so because Sargon's he's 1/4 non-white.
Mm-hmm.
Listen.
Yes.
Listen. I warned Sargon. I said, because we had this long
ethnicity
debate.
Thing. I know.
Listen,
we saw this coming.
Me and Sargon, we and Adam, we have these long debates on our channel. And my theory is that Sargon comes on our channel to test arguments, and then we're the sounding board, which I like, which I'm a big fan.
He actually does do that. Yes, we've talked.
Okay, and we had this conversation, and he kept using this term ethnicity, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he wasn't really talking about ethnicity from an American perspective, which generally just means race. He meant like, are you British? Are you French? Or whatever.
American is an ethnicity by his.
And I'm like,
yes,
okay,
it is,
yeah. And I'm like, Carl, I understand what you're talking about, but you can't use that word. You can't use the ethnic word in that way when you go into other people's channels, because unlike me, they're not going to take 5 minutes to try to figure out what you're talking about. They're just going to call you a white nationalist.
Yeah.
And then he did that in the conversation with Raj, and then they labeled him a white nationalist forever. So
yeah,
I warned you, Carl. I warned you.
I know. We did. We tried to tell him. He was obstinate about it. Carl.
Sargon's great. I love this guy to death, but he has this consistent problem with optics.
He doesn't care about optics. That's the problem.
Well, no, I think there's some nobility in that of just being like, fuck you. I know where I stand. I don't care what you think of me, and just stand by the truth. Okay, fair enough. Like, okay, I can appreciate that. but it does cause problems sometimes. And yeah,
It
there's
does. Yeah.
I did a video on it last year. It was an essay describing liberal nationalism, and it relied on the British the European idea of what ethnicity is, and it's not race. It's
Right.
like it's the
nationalism. Yeah.
It's not even nationalism. It's the shared story that a people tell about themselves as to why they should be considered one group, even if there are divisions within the group, even if there are like clear genetic differences between individuals or subgroups. But they say, you know what? He used the example of France. Northern and southern France, they're genetically very different, and they've had historical wars between North and South France. But the modern Republic of France, they all view themselves as French. And this liberal nationalism essay basically laid out the argument that a nation can only exist, and not in terms of a state, like not a government, but a nation as in a people can only exist if the people within that group consent to being considered an ethnicity. So it's not genetic. It's like a buy-in. It's a cultural buy-in.
Right. But
when Europeans say ethnic, that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about race.
Right.
They're talking about like a shared story that people tell to each other about who they are.
Yeah, we get that, but the Lance serfs of the world is not gonna explain that.
Right.
They're playing a completely different game. They just want to be able to call Sargon
well, is it stupidity, or is it ignorance, or is it just they see an opportunity to hurt somebody they don't like?
It could be all of the above. I mean, they all think that anyone on the right is basically is just a white nationalist who's pretending and hiding their power level. So if Sargon gives them any sort of leeway, any grounds to sort of fall into that trap, and say, we caught you, we finally caught you, you let the mask slip,